Okay, you guys, I'm really, really, really excited about this episode. I'm so excited. I feel like I've had 6 cups of coffee and I haven't had zero caffeine. And I'm just like, should I take a CBD gummy? And I didn't. And I was like, don't worry about it. Just calm down. I can't. Okay, so where we're at here is Candy just finished listening to the podcast called the Telepathy Tapes. And this podcast is about um, mostly kids, but some young adults with autism who are non-speakers, non-verbal. Okay, and that they're
And
and they're
don't let that turn you off
and they're
because,
telepathic.
yes,
That's
because
the
that
name of
is just the premise
that's
that
just the tip of the iceberg. So
that that's how they, I just, all
it's
right.
I can't. Okay, listen. Before you listen to this, if you have not listened to the Telepathy Tapes podcast itself, this is like maximum spoilers. We're not holding
Yes.
back. We're not
No.
saying, should we not say that to them if they haven't listened to it? No. You're responsible for yourself. Listen to it first if you don't like spoilers. If you don't care about spoilers, then listen to this, do whatever you want.
I will also say that I think you could listen to this and still like watch the episode or listen to the episodes because to hear the podcast is fucking mind blowing.
It's
I don't
fucking mind
I
blowing.
don't think we could spoiler it. Like I think that even if we told them every single thing that happened, you're just not going to get into the energy and the space and the belief of it until you listen to it for yourself.
Exactly. And it's like, and it just builds and builds because, like, okay, this was sent to us by a friend of ours who never has ever, ever sent me a podcast or a book to listen to ever. And I've known her for, I don't know, 20 years. And she's in our yoga world. And so I first started listening to it and I listened to like an episode and a half. Katie and I both did. And we're both, I was like, I mean, are they just going to keep doing the tests? Like, I get it. Is this like 10 episodes of them testing like these
Yeah.
people to prove that they're telepathic? Like, I believe they're telepathic. Like, you'd say it out loud. And I'm like, yeah, I believe that. So I just was kind of like bored with it. But then I was like, actually, the person that sent it to me has never sent me anything ever. So just suck it up and keep listening. And then I was just like, every episode gets more insane and more insane and more insane. And then by the end, you're just like, oh no, these are future humans. Like they're humans, like with futuristic capabilities. Like we all will be telepathic in the future. We just have forgotten how to do it. But they're
Right.
not connected to their bodies as much, which is why they don't have control over them. And so you're hearing their words, like, and what they want to say about all of this. And I just have full blown chills. And I just want to say one thing. Okay, Candy, here's what I was in the weeds on this morning. I was like, I'm going to make all my notes because I have 600,000 questions and we do not have time to go through all of them. So I wrote down all my notes that I wanted. I re-listened to episodes 5 through 10 and the bonus episode, and wrote down all my notes. And then I organized them by topics because they scatter the topics throughout because she did such a good job of putting this together. Like Kai, the woman that did it, it's just amazing how it progresses. But so I organized them by topics. And then I was like, this is all in the intention of trying to get some questions together, but I was so overwhelmed with everything. I was like, fuck it, I need ChatGPT to help me. So I was like, can you, first of all, I just verbally like recorded all my notes and then I was like, organize these. And then I was like, um, I forget what I asked it to do next, but I was like, summarize this. And it was giving me all this stuff. And then I realized it was starting to give me the theories and the scientific theories about like quantum consciousness and quantum physics and everything, and the like spiritual theories that are behind all of these things that they're saying. And so then it gave me, it just like, how it does extra shit you're not asking it to do.
Yeah.
Here's what it said at the end. It calls it a framework. And these are notes about what the kids are saying. Okay. This entire framework presents a bridge between ancient wisdom and cutting edge science. It aligns with quantum consciousness, simulation theory, energetic fields, and mystical traditions. The underlying message is that humans have immense forgotten abilities, and awakening to love, intuition, and interconnectedness is the next step in evolution.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. I was like, fuck. So
Probably
like
the smartest thing I've heard ChatGPT say.
I think that's like, and you said this, but we just hadn't hit the record button. You were like, this is everything we're trying to do with Rain.
Yeah.
This is everything we've been doing for, I don't know, since like, when was I even starting doing this? The first consciousness book I read was like is the year 2000. And it's been off and on for 25 years of like, not just consciousness, but like, what are we as human beings actually supposed to be fucking doing and what is even happening here? But
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, this is going to be a podcast of just Laura because I'm not going to be able to talk. She's too excited.
I know. No, I really want, no, but actually, I want to hear what you thought because, like, I was like, just finish the fucking podcast, Katie.
Oh my God, every day. She's like, did you listen to it? Did you finish it? Come on. It just, the first two episodes are so slow. I really struggled to get past them because I believe this stuff. I believed it all my entire life. So I didn't need her proof. And I'm glad she did it that way because so many people are going to need it. But I was just like, are you going to get to the point of this? There's something bigger that is behind all of this. Can we get there? But I didn't want to skip anything. So I was going to say that what this podcast did for me is validate what we learned during the BQH training. So when we did the BQH training, which is Beyond Quantum Healing, we learned how to use hypnosis to tap into our higher selves. And then we started playing with it and we started doing it with other people. We started getting validation. And then we started doing what's called a surrogate, where like, if somebody was afraid of the hypnosis and couldn't like access their own channel, then I would go under on their behalf and access their channel. And I was getting their information. I didn't know these people's stories. I was getting their information and speaking it out loud so that the person and Laura could both hear it. And that was validation. But yet there's still a part of you that's like, am I crazy? Am I just working with crazy people? Like, have I just surrounded myself with everyone who just believes this crazy shit? And these kids are doing it. And they're using the same vocabulary that we got. We don't know these kids.
Exactly.
Like they said, what was it? The quantum collective. No, the quantum consciousness. Oh my God. I had too much caffeine today.
I think we said quantum collective. I think they were using...
They said it too.
They said the quantum field, they said the realms, they said the Akashic, they said the divine, they said the universal mind, they said the collective consciousness, like all of those phrases. I've actually have that question when we do questions later.
So for me, what it was this validation of what we've been doing. Like it really has been working and we really are tapping into that broader consciousness. We're not making it up. It also helped me to differentiate between like what feels like talking to our higher selves, like our intuition and tapping into that guidance and hearing that voice more clearly versus when you're actually kind of going out beyond that and tapping into something bigger, like that quantum field. It gave me a framework that I didn't have prior to listening to this, because this is how these humans exist. Like they don't exist in our world. They exist in that world.
Right. And they say that, and you're listening to so many different people describe the same types of things using different kinds of language. And I think what we've learned from doing this is the language is so limiting. And this is what they're saying, like telepathy, or just like, I don't even know if telepathy is the right word because I think that's almost still limited, but it's like somebody in the podcast describes, like if I say Christmas, like you have to say that word out loud. But if you telepath that, or you get the download of information about Christmas, you see the trees, the lights, the people opening gifts, like you see the whole picture of it. And that's,
yeah, they said it's a quantum download, and that's what we've been saying the whole time. It's like you just get this whole package of information that we have to decipher
and try to speak out loud.
Exactly. And it's overwhelming. So as a speaker, it is overwhelming to try to communicate that amount of information clearly and articulately and feel like you're getting the right intent across. I can only imagine what these kids deal with on a regular basis, because that's how they're getting communication.
And well, and there was this beautiful piece, and I can't remember all the things they said, but they're like, they have to, it's like the way the tongue moves, the way the mouth moves, the way you move your throat. Like there's all these physical things happening in the body that has to happen. Not only do you have to pronounce the word, but it's all of these other things. And they don't have control of their bodies. So it is really hard for them. And some of them, like intentionally, there's one man, I think it's Anthony, but I'm not sure, who decides, and he's in his 20s. He's like, I'm just done being verbal. Like he just is like, I'm done here. Because he's got someone that he can completely communicate with. And he just is too hard for him to do the physical piece of it. And so like, one of them said they're part of a non-speaking soul group working with between dimensions to descend and accept 3D linear thought, but they struggle with the physical limitations of the 3D. But something you said earlier, like it's not just, it's like even when you read books about consciousness, it's all theory. Or it's like a regular person kind of channeling it. Like I would say regular. I hate to say that word because I don't like, what were they
Who's
calling it?
regular?
I know who's regular. Like what do they call neurotypical? Neurotypical person just like writing the book about consciousness, but it's all theory, or it's possible they channeled it or whatever. But it's still like, I guess I realized maybe I still like I believed it, but as Candy said, it's like, holy shit, they are confirming all of these different theories and concepts. And the other piece that they emphasize, and I don't know, if you haven't had experience with people with autism, um, I'm not saying they all don't lie, but like they're kind of known for not lying. They just don't care enough to lie to you. It's just like they just don't have that in their being. So, at least the ones I've come in contact with, and the ones they're talking about in this podcast too.
So yeah, so they're not part of a broader conspiracy to try to bring forward this like structured belief system. And none of these kids knew each other. They're from all over the United States and the world. So like, I think for me, knowing that they're nonverbal, that they're autistic, that they don't live in the world the same way that neurotypical people do, it makes it so much more believable because they're not spending every day on fucking TikTok. Nope, not a part of their world. You know what I mean? Like they're not reading the same blogs that the rest of us would be reading. They're not interacting in, like fringe yoga circles or whatever. I mean, they're in their own world. And a lot of times it's like really small and really contained and really protected, yet they're all having these same experiences.
Well, so like, let's talk about the Dreamtime school.
Well, before we get to that,
Okay.
though, I want to touch on, we were talking about their bodies, and I remembered when I went through that storm in Asheville, and it really freaked me out, and I felt like I could feel that my root chakra was like, there was, how are we going to eat? How are we going to drink? Where are we going to go to the bathroom? Like, there's no electricity, there's no water, there's no cell coverage. I mean, like the basic needs were gone. And during that whole time, and for quite a bit after that, I felt like I couldn't access my higher self. Like the channel was, I don't want to say shut down, but I just wasn't able to get to it. Like, and I mentioned this to Laura, like, I just felt like I couldn't get in touch with my own guidance system. And part of it, I wasn't sure at the time, but now I'm definitely sure, was because my physical body, my 3D self, I was so unsure of how to move forward in the world and what was safe and what was next and where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing, that I had just shifted into survival mode. It's probably the most terrified I've ever been, probably my whole life, definitely as an adult. And what I think I realized in listening to these kids talk, who they're disassociated from their bodies in some way. I mean, they're just not plugged in like we are. It just made me feel like when things that significant happen, or when we exist in fight or flight for too long, or our adrenals are too taxed, or we are too stressed, it makes it so much harder for us to tap into that guidance system, to be able to hear the whisper, to be able to dial it up, to be able to even get out to the quantum consciousness. It's just way too big of a leap. We basically go into shutdown mode and just I need to use all my energy and whatever it takes just to get this body through this world.
Yeah, it's almost like the reverse.
Yeah. And it was months later that I finally was okay, I kind of can feel everything clicking back into place and myself coming back online and being able to get my own information. I mean, I was how I was desperate to get information from whoever I could. I mean, I did a session with our shaman. I did a session with a psychic that we've worked with for years. And I was like, who else do I need to talk to? We did a psychic session in Florida because I was just I can't get my own intel. I need somebody to give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was wild.
Yeah, to be cut off from your kind of they're living in that connection and
Right.
having to force themselves to try to drop into the body. And you
Right.
were like trapped in the body, cut off from the connection.
Yeah. So it just like, that's probably how so many people live day in, day out. I mean, I know that that's how I lived when I was in corporate America. That's why I quit. But for me, it just drove home the fact of, oh my God, like we really need to take what we're learning and what the experiences that we're being given, especially because of this podcast, and just help more people to dial up that whisper. And in the bonus episode, I would think, what's it called when they like, I think
I think
it's,
it's like the talk tapes.
yeah, that's it. When they talk to Daniel, he's like, I was using breath work. And I was like, yes, you were, my friend. Yes,
Snaps,
you
snaps,
were.
snaps.
Because he's like, I had to clear away the lower vibrational stuff so that I could get myself to a vibration so that I could make it to the hill to have the conversation with these kids and these beings. And I was like, oh my
Well,
God,
yeah,
all this shit had to line up.
it all lined up. Like I was like sobbing during one of these, and it wasn't the one that's so sad, which
Oh my God, I know.
I'm not gonna give that
We're
away,
not
but
going to
like
spoiler that one.
um it was actually after that. It could have been when they were all like the last episode is 10 where you're all it is just like you're hearing their words the whole episode. But it was like this whole thing came together because they touched on every single thing. Like they even touched on the fucking cards. Hello, the one guy that's trying to get his mom to wake up in lucid dreaming so we can talk to her in dream time. This kid is trying to get his mom to wake up. He takes the ace of spades and like holds it up to her face, her eye. The ace of spades is the card that represents the card. It represents the esoteric mysteries. It is like, I'm getting chills. It's like, it means, it's actually, its definition, its most basic definition would be the mystery. That is what the ace of spades means. And I mean, it tied in the cards, it brought in breath work, and it brought in something that like, and when Candy was saying like clearing out these lower vibrational things, like clearing out I've heard them say like your ego has to be cleared out because like that's an experience. Like the person was saying that was saying like they have to clear their ego out to be able to telepath with their either autistic child or with like it's a teacher or someone working with an autistic child or young adult. And so they're taught like you have to clear your ego out. They're like you have to get quiet. You have to drop into your body. Like I think what they're saying is like you have to like kind of clear your body out and calm your body down. And and that's what they mean. Like and they talk a lot about this throughout the podcast in different ways. It's like the autistic kids are saying you have to match me in frequency to be able to telepath with me. So we're not just talking about the kids being able to telepath to each other. They're adult people, caregivers or whomever, they can telepath to them and those people can telepath back. So like it, I mean, so they're saying you have to kind of clear the stuff out. And then I was so struck by the piece in I think it's episode 10, one of them is saying, the next thing for humanity is we have to be recognizing our emotions. We have to work on our emotional intelligence. This is important in education. It's important in the medical field. We have to understand how our emotions affect our bodies, our hormones, our relationships with each other. And I'm like, this is all Candy and I do with each other, is why we're letting you drop in on our conversations as we call each other on the phone. And I'm like, I'm so fucking pissed off at this person. And then it's like, you like rant for a few minutes and then you're like, why am I upset about this? Let's do a bubble question. Like bubble, go into the bubble and help me see this from this higher perspective, because you're kind of saying like, it's like, I know Candy and I can do it on our own. Like I can do it for myself, but like, it's so much easier to just have someone else look at it because you're kind of wrapped up in it. But like they really touched on every single piece of what we're trying to do with Rain. And honestly, I mean, what we started with the cards, with the business with the cards in 2014.
Yeah,
We have been
10 years plus.
It's been 10 years of us trying to figure out what the fuck are we even doing? What is this business?
But
Like,
also like continuously being pushed forward. It's not like through all the different iterations of the business, even
there's no
when it didn't.
waste.
No, even when we were like, okay, we got to let this go and move on from it. It's like in our personal lives, as our hobby, we kept doing all of this stuff. Like, we never moved away from the gifts that we were given, and or the gifts that we were awakened to. And I feel like it was very much on purpose because this is the direction that everything is moving. And we needed that much time of practice to be able to be so confident in what we're doing now, I think.
Right. I
And
think so too.
to hear these tapes, it's just like reinforced every fucking thing. It was insane. And also not limited to the fact that, like, when they were talking about love and how, like, love is where everything is going, like, you just have to be in the vibration of love. And some of them said that they won't communicate with someone if they're not in that same space. Like, they're leading with their hearts. They're communicating with their hearts. They're experiencing this world with their hearts. They're light bringers and light workers, and that's what they're here to do. And it reminded me of the Bufo experience that I had, the psychedelic experience that I did in Mexico, which I had never done a psychedelic experience before. And or like the MDMA that we did, it clears everything out and opens up the heart space and allows you to feel like this immense sense of love for everything. That's what the Bufo was. And had I not had that experience, I probably wouldn't be able to understand what these kids are saying. Nor would I be able to say that that feeling is the same feeling that we get in the bubble. It's everything falls away, the ego dissolves, and you are held in this space of divine wisdom and love for everything. Like, your higher self, the collective, they're not ever mad about anything. They're not disappointed. They're just like, they're accepting and they're nurturing, and they're just like, sometimes they offer course correcting guidance, but nothing is ever a waste through the eyes of the collective. It's amazing. And like, it's just pure love. It's unconditional love. And that's what those kids said, is like, we experience unconditional love, and that's what humanity has to learn to do. And that is what we experience in the bubble. And I know it because that's what I felt in my psychedelic experience. And that's what I heard these kids say.
That's amazing. Well, and I think too, it's so easy to get, like, you look at the news or you open the news now and you're like, oh, I don't mean, I told Candy, I was like, I listened to Lee Harris's 2025 prediction with the channels that he uses, and then listen to this podcast, which came out at the most perfect timing in the entire universe, at least for us, but probably for the whole collective. And then you turn on the news, and you're like, I mean, are we on the same planet? No. And I'm just like, you just have to keep going back into this vibration, because Lily, I wrote down her name because I thought this was so huge. She said, we are about to go through a cataclysmic shift in the understanding of the fundamental nature of our relationship to the universe and everything in it. And the spiritual woo-woo people have been talking about the ascension, or like the big shift. Eckhart Tolle's like the new earth, his book, The New World. Somebody in this podcast mentioned the words the new earth. Like, they use those words. So it's like, there's been all this talk about it happening, but you're kind of like, I mean, really, is it happening? Candy and I are Gen X, so we're just always skeptical. It's like, I mean, really? It doesn't really seem like it's happening. I don't know about that.
I mean, how many years was it that we had been like doing these readings and tapping into the collective, and then we're finally like, I think we should ask who we're talking to. Right. Let's validate. We need to like trust but verify now. Like, who is this?